have a secret. Well, actually, I have a confession. I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes. Okay, now you know, and there's a tag going around the YouTube beauty community about which palettes would I keep if I could only keep 10. This was really hard, but I did it. So if you want to see which 10 palettes out of my collection I would keep if I had to get rid of all of them, except for 10, then stick around. Hey all, Tina here. Welcome to Beautiful Journey. I am so glad that you decided to spend a little time here today. So as I said, I do have quite a few palettes, and this was actually a really difficult exercise. I didn't expect it to be quite so hard. I was able to narrow it down to about 15 palettes pretty quickly, and then I got stuck. So I called in some reinforcements, and my husband and my daughter came in and helped me to think through and narrow down which ones I should keep and which ones should be set aside. And it got a little intense, and I had to remind them that this wasn't real. I wasn't really going to be getting rid of any of my palettes. Although I do need to do a declutter, because in doing this I realized that I have some that have gotten quite old, and I also have a few that are still fine, but I never reach for them. And so I really should pass them along to somebody who's going to use them and really appreciate them, which is what they deserve. The very first palette that I pulled to put into my 10 palette collection was the Stone Cold Fox from ColourPop. This is an amazing selection of neutrals. The ColourPop formula is wonderful, and really there's just about everything you need in a neutral in this palette. There's a white, there's an ivory, there are deep dark shades, there's a black and a dark brown, you've got some mauve tones, you've got some neutral taupe grays, and even a little bit more warmth over here if you want to go just a little bit warm. It doesn't go really warm, so I've got something else to cover that. But this I feel would be a definite must in any small curated collection. Then, because rosy mauve tones are pretty much my go-to eye look, yes, it's what I did today. I laid out my palettes that are that color story, and this is my favorite of all of them, the LA Girl Pro Mastery palette. The formula in this is just fantastic, and for the price I really don't think it can be beat. There are these beautiful mauves and rosy tones, plus some bronzy tones over here and some really deep maroons, so you can get kind of deep and smoky if you want to, or you can just keep it really light and springy and summery with these. So those two were easy picks, and then it got harder. So what I tried to do with this, and my husband and my daughter helped, was to make sure that I had the different colors covered. So if I wanted a blue look or a green look or a purple look, did I have something in this 10 palette collection that would do that? And while I don't do a blue look very often, when I do, Blueberry Muffin from BH Cosmetics is what I reach for. This is a gorgeous palette, and I will have a video coming up very soon using this palette for an evening event makeup look. So keep an eye out for that. I think it's going to go up Friday of the week that this one goes up. These blues are just fantastic. You have this periwinkle, there's a sky robin's egg blue kind of right here, the shimmers, and then there are these lighter shimmers that you can use as toppers or in the inner corner, and you can get some neutrals out of this. It's just gorgeous. So this was the palette I selected for when I want a blue look. And then, of course, I love greens, and so my overall best green palette is the BH Cosmetics Avocado Toast. This one has several different options. You can get a little bit lime colored here, you can get into some teals, there's like a khaki olivey green, and then some golds and pinks and things to pair with it. So love this palette, use it a lot. So that is number 4. And then I was thinking, well, sometimes, especially in the spring and summer, I like to go kind of pastel. And so the palette that I have for that is the BH Cosmetics Lost in Los Angeles. And these are just pretty, pretty pastels. Just a rainbow of pastels, and I love this palette as well. The other thing I considered when I was putting these together is which would work together to create even more looks, and these all work really well together. And then the other color story I wanted to make sure that I had covered was purples, because I really like purple looks as well. And this one was just kind of a no-brainer, the Juvia's Place Violets palette. These purples are just stunning. I mean, what more can you say? And I still have a couple coming up that could work well with this even. So that's what I have in for purples. Then, while I said I had the neutrals covered, I realized that even though this may repeat some shades, I really wanted it in here. And that's the Alter Ego Temptress palette. This is a dupe for the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette, and it is just so pretty. I've had this for a while, but it's still in really good condition, and I know it doesn't look like I've used these shades very much, but I have. And this shimmer right here is just really kind of special. And while the others probably could be duplicated in other things that I have in here, I don't think that one is. And yes, I'm okay giving up one slot for that shade because I use the rest of them in there too. All right, that was 7. The next 2 palettes were included just kind of to fill in holes where I thought maybe I needed a color that I didn't already have. And one of those is the LA Colors Lemon Drop palette. This one is a yellow golden kind of color story, and it's not necessarily unique to what I have, but it does add this yellow and some of these mustardy colors that I didn't have in anything else. So even though this is only a $2.99 palette, it fits in really nicely with my collection because it fills in some gaps that were left by the other palettes. And this one does a very similar thing. Because I have the Lost in Los Angeles palette, I have the pastels taken care of, but if I want to get kind of bright and fun and rainbowy, I don't really have that yet. And so the NYX Off Tropic palette does that for me. We have this brighter green, we have some bright purple, some oranges, and then again, a little bit of these mustardy colors, but a little bit more muted. And so these two help, like I said, fill in some gaps and round it out a little bit. And so I had one more palette, and I realized as I was looking at my 9 palettes that what was missing was a really fall toned, warm palette, something with those pumpkins and the oranges and the rusty colors. I didn't have that yet. I have a lot of cool, I have color, but I needed something with that warmth. And so I thought, well, I could bring in this Hip Dot Witchy Warms that I got in an Ipsy Glam Bag Plus. And I mean, that just screams fall, right? You've got these deep rusts and bronze and coppers. And so I was thinking about that one, but I really didn't want to exclude my BH Zodiac palette. I had put this in initially, and my daughter said, well, you have all those colors and other things, and we moved it aside. And then I brought it back in, and then she tried to convince me that I didn't need it again, but I wanted it. But I needed these colors. And I realized that as you look at this BH palette, it's difficult to focus on these colors because these are so gorgeous. But if you focus on these, they're there, right there. There are those warm, rich tones that I wanted out of this one. There's the copper and the gold. And so I made my case that this palette would do everything that this one would do, but also have all of these other colors to play with as well. So the BH Zodiac palette is my 10th palette in my I can only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes simulation, because it's not real. I do not actually have to get rid of any of my palettes if I don't want to. But if I had to, these are the ones I'd keep. How about you? If you had to sort through your palettes and narrow it down to just 10, what would be the #1 must-have, no negotiations palette that you would include on that list? Let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear it. This was fun, but it was also kind of hard, and I was glad for the help that my husband and daughter gave me in thinking through which palettes would be included and which ones we would take out. Except for Stone Cold Fox, honestly, I wasn't sure what this was going to look like after I got everything out and spread them out and opened them up and compared them, but I'm really happy with the 10 that I chose. I'm also really happy with the fact that I don't have to actually get rid of all of the rest of them. Now, I did not include any of my e.l.f. bite-sized palettes or any other 4 pans that I might have, because I thought if I'm going to go down to 10, I need palettes that do a lot of things. And with most of those quads, honestly, you really do just get a single look out of them unless you just do like a one and done or something like that. I hope that you enjoyed watching my picks. If you'd like to see me using these couple of palettes in eye looks, I used the Stone Cold Fox palette in that one there. And I used the Lemon Drop palette in that one, my very first Get Ready With Me. My channel just turned a year old, and I want to thank all of you who have joined in at any point along this amazing, beautiful journey. I hope you have a beautiful, blessed day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.